This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. The Big Football Show every Sunday at 8 a.m. on Roku at 4 p.m. And good morning and welcome to the Big Football Show as we're here every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on Twitter and YouTube, and we're back at 4 p.m. on Roku. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the show. Good morning, James. Good morning, Jack. How you doing today?
Doing great. I hope you're well too, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And hopefully Jax is with us. I mean, he's having a little technical problems, as a lot of times we do when we do live sports. So everyone out there, I think Jack is stuck unless he can reply to me. And we'll go ahead and remove him from now. There he goes. Maybe he'll come back in a little bit. Sonia Pearson, I know she's having some family issues, and we'll see if she makes it in. Keith Angle will be with us from TTI Sports, and also maybe the Philly Sports guy is scheduled to come in, and we'll talk a little bit about football. But, of course, that's what this show is all about, James. It's all about football, as the Big Football Show continues to be one of the best on the air. So, James, I love football fans. I really do. I love their enthusiasm versus realism, if you will. I mean, there's always high hopes. I think the most exciting time of the year, people will say it's a Super Bowl. I disagree. I think it's opening day, because we wait all year and we watch them make their moves off-season, picking up free agents and going out and drafting some of these players that are supposed to come in and maybe make a huge impact on their teams. And, you know, I think if I asked anybody, for the most part, how they think their team would do, there's always a level of expectation, right? We could make the wild card, no matter what the team is. I think Sonia would say that the Panthers have a shot at the wild card, right? And I think you, last year it was close. You got Kirk Cousins. Well, you got Derek Carr, over there right now. You got an older team. I think you're looking at least for a wild card. I think most fans, even on teams that we kind of think won't make the playoffs, the big if is in there. If this happens, my team will make the playoffs. And Jack, I know you're down there below, and hopefully he's coming on. And the Jets, another big thing, right? If Aaron Rodgers can play like he did a few years ago, the Jets will make the playoffs. Now we saw a lot of teams. Here comes Keith, and another one, right? I bring in another team right here with Keith Angle with the Patriots. Now I know Keith's reality and the hope of his team are two different things here, right? Keith thinks there's a way that the Patriots could get a wild card, right? I mean, that's what most fans do. Me, I'm kind of a realist. I know my Giants aren't going to make the playoffs. I know it right now. I can tell you right off that the Giants will not make the playoffs. I just know that. So Keith, James, and Jack, your face isn't there. I'm going to pick on a team. And good morning to Keith from TGI Sports. I just threw him right in the middle of this. I watch most of the shows on the network. Of course, I'm like the program director at Roku. And I watch most of the shows that come out of the network. I try to catch everyone, look at them once a week. And we got this great show on Roku called Ken and Ken in the morning. It's out of the Frozen Tundra Network. And I'm listening to Ken the Bear fan. And he's saying, listen, My expectations are 9-8 wild card. And once you get in the playoffs, who knows? Anything can happen. So I want to go over the Bears a little bit this morning, a little different. I want to talk a little bit about the Bears today. And if you're going to look at the Bears, you first got to look within their division, right? You got the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions. Both made the playoffs last year. Detroit looks loaded, Keith and James, as from what I see. And Green Bay, that young team got it together at the end of the year and ended up beating the Cowboys in the playoffs. Would you both agree that the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions are better than the Chicago Bears right at this point?
Yes.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt, right?
Without a doubt. Yes. That doesn't mean something crazy can't happen, but yes.
Again, anything can happen in football. But I'm just saying, realistically, those two teams, one's probably going to win the division, and one will probably be a wild card. That's not too far out there, right? That's pretty much what I would think. Then I go to the other divisions, and I look at the competition going on. I go to the NFC East. I look at the Eagles and the Cowboys. In my opinion, the Eagles win it, but you could say the Dallas. You say Dallas Cowboys win it. You're probably going to get a division winner and a wild card out of the East. Would you guys say that's pretty much not a lock, but it's a pretty good realistic choice?
Yes, I possibly do think your team does have a path. I'm not saying it's realistic, but they have a path. But yes,
right.
Yes.
Okay, so here comes Rick, but don't count out the Vikings. They will definitely be playing football this year, Rick. They will be playing football. So then I go to the NFC West, and you got the 49ers, who probably might be one of the favorites. You got the Seattle Seahawks, who are an improving team, and they've been in the playoffs in the last 2 years. And I think the 49ers at least will make the playoffs, probably as the title, as the division winner. And then maybe Seattle gets in as a playoff wild card. Possibility, right, guys? That would be possible.
Possibly. Seahawks didn't make the playoffs last year, I don't believe, and they took a step back the year before. And again, I would make an argument that that's the least likely scenario with the Seahawks.
Right. So let's drop Jack's in. On the other side, let's bring Jack in. So, Jack, we're discussing Ken the Bear fan on the Tundra Sports with Ken and Ken in the morning. And Ken thinks that the Bears expectations are 9-8 wild card, and once you get in the playoffs, who knows? So what I've been doing is going through each division and seeing how realistic this would be. And I'm doing this because everybody has a view of their team making the playoffs in one way or another, mostly. Some are more realistic. Others are a little, they're a little out there. And I made the point that, the Jets, if Aaron Rodgers plays the way he's capable of playing, even average, the Jets have a decent shot at making a wild card. So now I go to the South Division and I look at the Saints, I look at the Falcons, and I look at Tampa Bay. You're going to get a division winner, and Tampa Bay and maybe the Saints fight for a wild card. That's kind of realistic because of what we saw last year, and they're probably a little bit better. So nowhere and no path do I see the Bears getting a wild card at 9-8, and then in the playoff, who knows? I don't see that. And Ken the Bear fan, who I respect, I love their show, to me, is a typical fan who is wearing those glasses. You know what I mean? The glasses that say, if this happens, if that happens. And if you look at the Bears with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach, that makes it even harder. I think you all might agree with that, right?
Didn't we see the Houston Texans last year with a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback go to the playoffs and actually win a game there?
Great point. But that's a rarity. That's not a normal thing.
And also, you have to look at the division.
Right.
I mean, I I see a path for the Bears getting to the playoffs. Absolutely. I'm not saying they're going to get there, but look at the Green Bay Packers last year. They peaked towards the end of the year. They weren't that highly regarded the majority of the year. And we don't know how good the Lions are going to be. We think they're going to be pretty good, but, they might slide back a little bit. The Packers' late surge, maybe that's a little bit of an aberration, and maybe we're overrating them a little. Now we're talking about Jordan Love being paid the maximum salary. People are talking like he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. We don't know. We have to see a little more of a body of work from Jordan Love. We don't know how good Caleb Williams is going to be. And keep this in mind. Last year, a lot of people were picking the Bears to go to the playoffs, okay? And they got off to a dreadful start, but by the end of the year, they were better. They were playing better.
Yes.
The team was improving. So we don't really know.
It's a great point, and no, we don't really know, Jack, but we can hedge a little bit. We can think and see what happened in the offseason. For example, Green Bay made a lot of great moves in the offseason. They picked up McKinney. They picked some good free agents in the offseason. Yes, exactly. So now let's look at it this way. Then the Bear fan also said they had one of the better running games in the league last year. They had a good running game. Well, a majority of that running game is now in Pittsburgh right now, Justin Fields. And we got, again, a rookie quarterback. I just wanted to make the point that we talked about before. The most exciting time of the football season is not really the Super Bowl. It's opening day. Because we all think that our team, in one way or another, has a shot at making the playoffs. And some people, I think, are going to be very, very disappointed if that's what the expectations are. In other words, my expectations for my team is to be better than last year. Right. And
let me tell you what's a good category, because you make a great point, Mac. Everyone is in the hope business at the start of the season. Everyone, for the most part, seems to be overrating their team. Which teams in the NFL have the lowest expectations? And no offense to Keith, but I'd say the New England Patriots, because I think people generally accepting, well, maybe they'll go 4-13, 5-12. They're not expecting much out of New England this year. And I get the feeling that includes a New England fan base. Even a team like the Carolina Panthers with 2-15, people are thinking, they'll win 5-6 games. Everyone is in the hope business. Teams like the Washington Commanders, their fans all excited. The Giant fans a little bit excited. Everyone has hope at the beginning of the year. And there's going to be a lot of disappointment. There's going to be a lot of mediocre teams this year. But to start the season, it's so hard to predict who's going to be bad. It's easier to predict who's going to be good than who's going to be bad.
I agree. And as a Patriot fan, I want to speak to the topic and in general. I don't think you lumped me in with Ken the Bear fan, Mac, but just to be clear, my realistic view is 4 or 5 wins, just like Jack was saying. Best case scenario, perfect, everything comes together the way it should. I said 9 wins and a wild card. Who knows? We don't know. We saw with the Texans. I don't expect that. I mean, and some fans listen, we got another show on this network called the NFC East show, where those guys, when they do their preseason predictions, are all going 17-0. Every one of them. I mean,
it is true. It is true.
Let me ask you this.
I have a realistic view of my team, and I'm harder on my teams than a lot of people are. You know how I am with the Yankees and even the Patriots. I'm the same way. I want to be wrong, and I look for reasons for myself to be wrong as well. But you got to be realistic as well.
This has to do with New England and a few other teams. The season is going to be measured on more than wins and losses. It's going to be measured on their future. For New England, if Drake May sees the field and he's really outstanding, New England could be 5-12. And the fans are going to be excited at the end of the season. They're not going to consider it a failure because they're going to look towards the future. The same way with the Bears you mentioned, Mac. If Caleb Williams looks like he could be a great quarterback, they could have a losing record, and the fans are going to take a lot out of it. So I think, you know, certain fan bases are peeking towards the future, like the Washington Commanders with Jaden Daniels. And I think it's more than wins and losses for some franchise this season.
You can be competitive too. If you can be competitive, Jack,
I agree.
Mac talked about improving. If you're competitive, you finish the season strong. You talked about Drake May. If he sees the field late in the year and they win, 3 of their last 4 games or something, then you've got something to say that's a positive step forward. And same way with a lot of teams. So, which is one of the reasons I was surprised the Bears blew it up, because they did win 6 of the last 7, I think, last year, and they decided to start over. I don't get that at all.
I get that, Keith. When you say start over, you're probably referring more so to the quarterback position than anything else. 1 year from now, they then have to make a decision on Justin Fields, whether to pay him big quarterback money or not. He didn't show enough to merit big quarterback money. You were kind of like hoping, and with Caleb Williams, you start the rookie pay scale from the beginning. So as far as cap space went, they were thinking of that to a degree, I'm sure.
Yeah, but this year he would have still be paid under the rookie contract, and they could have made that decision after this year. Similar, not similar to Daniel Jones, but Daniel Jones is not getting his $80 million that's left on his contract if he doesn't have a good year this year. So
but think of this: if Justin Fields merited being the franchise quarterback, wouldn't he be starting in Pittsburgh over past his peak Russell Wilson? I mean, think of that element.
He very likely could be, so we don't know that yet, right? He's on a depth chart. He's not, but we've got a long ways to go to opening day.
I think the main thing is that Caleb Williams is a relatively unknown. He hasn't played in the NFL, not one down yet. And so you have all the other players. They've added pieces on in receivers. I believe they got another running back. So we'll see how they do. But there's a difference between being in the hope business and being in the homer business. So you can see that some guys, no matter how many bad seasons they have, they're going to always say their team is going to the Super Bowl the next season. And it's just what it is. And I don't know specifically if the Chicago Bears fan is like that, but I mean, we can look at the Falcons and say that you can almost say that they're in the homer business if they're saying they're going to the Super Bowl, because they'll pass if we can go all the way back to 2016 when they went to the Super Bowl. They maybe went to one playoff game after that, and after that they had pretty bad, mediocre to subpar seasons. And now here we are on paper. They look great. They look like they can win the division. So I guess it's a matter of whether or not you have projections because what you have on paper versus what you've proven the past seasons. But now they got a whole new coach, everything. So we'll have to see. But I do think that the Falcons will be better. I just don't know, it's yet to be determined if they're going to win the division. You're really giving a slap in the face to Tampa Bay or New Orleans because they were relatively at the same record. It's just one won the division because they won one more important game than the other. So we'll see how that rolls. I'm not saying that the Saints are winning the division. I think they're middle of the road. But I think it's going to be a fight between all 3 teams.
Yeah, and I think that's a reasonable statement. I mean, who knows how good Kirk Cousins coming off an injury. We'll see how well he performs this year. And I think Tampa Bay surprised a lot of people. And the Saints are what they have been to me the last few years. They're a decent team. And if the ball bounces the right way, of course, anything can happen. But that's not really an expectation, I think. And that's what I was trying to point out. Again, the Jets, if Rodgers is average, they got a good shot. And I think watching their defense and watching their young receivers and young cornerbacks, that's a reasonable expectation. If Rodgers has a average season, the Jets have a shot at least getting a wild card. And that's what I'm talking about. Rodgers has a history. The Jets defense has a history now. And we can look at those things and maybe project what could happen. So, and that's the point I was trying to make. Good morning, Rick. Good morning, Kenneth. Glad to have you on board. And CJ, good to see you too. I'm glad you tuned in. So I'm going to stop here with the NFL for a second. I want to talk a little college to Keith. It's been a while since I've been able to talk a little college football with Keith. And it was interesting. The Big 12 commissioner came out, Keith, and he said they're probably the third best conference in the league. Now, I mean, Utah joined them, if I'm not mistaken. The 2 Arizona teams joined that division now. I mean, they're good teams, but are they teams like that can change a conference from whatever to whatever? I'm not sure where the Big 12 stands as a college conference.
The Big 12 is a very interesting conference. It's not one of the best. The ACC might be as good as the Big 12, quite frankly. But it's an interesting. I mean, there are probably 7 teams that could finish first or finish 7th in that league, and there's some good football teams, but there's no really signature program there anymore to anchor it, right? With the Oklahomas and the Texas gone and Nebraska long gone, 20 almost not 20 years, but it feels like 20 years ago. That league is not what it used to be from a marquee standpoint. It's a fun league to watch, I can tell you that. It'll be very interesting, very competitive, but I mean, it's third by a long ways if it's third behind the SEC and the Big Ten for sure.
Yes. And you know, and of course, Keith brings his fan club with him along, which we appreciate.
Right.
Ralph Williams, you're right. yes. So
that was probably
in another news that would.
Fields starting over Wilson because Ralph's in Pittsburgh and a huge Pittsburgh fan.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, that will be a very interesting team this year. I think it all comes down to the quarterback in Pittsburgh, how far they go this year, because I think their team is pretty solid. So EA College Sports, you know, we have the professional and we have the college game there, was suspended for quite a while, especially after NIL came in. They kind of pulled it down from the shelves. But they got it going again. And one of the quarterbacks, believe it or not, in this game is Arch Manning. Now, Arch Manning I don't know how many games Arch Manning has even been in since he's been there, but Eli and Peyton make an appearance and they talk to Arch Manning as you're in this game. What happened to Arch Manning first, Keith? Arch Manning was one of the most high-profile high school quarterbacks going to college. They talked about him all the time. And does he belong on a game that when he really isn't the quarterback at Texas?
Well, he's going to be at a game because all the teams are in there and their entire roster's in there. So as long as he gets paid his money, like they all have to get paid their money now, he'll be in the game. The rating that he's given in this game, from what I understand, is the big controversy is that he's given a rating like at the top scale of college quarterbacks. And what's happened to Manning is nothing more than Cam Ewers has been a really good quarterback since he's been there. Manning had a great spring, by the way. I still think Manning may be the quarterback there before this year's out. Ewers has got a history of injury, and he also didn't finish last year as strongly as Texas would have liked. But you can't just go there and be given the job. And Ewers has earned that right. I mean, he hasn't lost much eligibility because they redshirted him last year because of the redshirt rules now are very lenient. So Manning's going to be the quarterback there at least next year, if not before.
Well, Keith, I saw one of these mock drafts for next year, and it had Quinn Ewers going number 10 overall. First round, number 10 overall. I mean, okay, maybe you don't think he's quite that good. Even if he slips a little, you're talking about right now, he would probably go in the first round somewhere. And also Arch Manning, what I read, he had a discussion with his dad, Cooper. And Arch Manning likes the university. He's a college kid. He loves it there. He loves his coaching staff. He loves his teammates. And he's willing to wait for his time because he understands if he goes to a new school, it's like starting all over again. And he's invested all this time. He knows there's a possibility he might be on the bench this year. But he doesn't come from a poor family.
No.
He's making money in college. So worst case scenario, like Keith said, he'll start next season and he has more than enough time to establish himself, as a potentially elite NFL player.
Yeah, a lot of people have wanted to label him a big disappointment, but again, he ran into a guy who was playing a really good quarterback and had experience in the system, which again, you're going to play the best quarterback. And I think his maturity is the way he's handled this shows he's got pretty good maturity for a kid his age with those types of expectations put on his back as well.
But okay, now here's my reply to that. If I am a real competitor and I really want to play in pro football and I really want to have starting experience to play in pro football, why would I be willing to sit behind a quarterback at another college when, from what I've read and seen, I'm one of the better high school quarterbacks to come out of high school, right? I'm a Manning. I'm part of a great quarterback family. Why would I be willing to sit behind somebody else when it's very easy to move? Granted, you love the college, that's fine. Granted, you love your teammates, but what do you really want to do? Do you want to be a great NFL quarterback? And this is the kind of thing that I think about, because to me, and I could be wrong, if I'm a competitor, I want to start. I don't want to sit behind somebody and say, well, yeah, he's going to be a good quarterback. He might go in the first round of draft. I want to go in the first round of draft next year. Do any of you feel that way when it comes to Arch?
Well, let me just say something. In the case of Tom Brady, he wasn't the prospect that Arch Manning is, but he could have started at Fresno State, been the starter. They promised him the starting position, but he picked Michigan because he was willing to work his way, up the ladder. And he was something like fourth quarterback on the depth chart, fourth or fifth or whatever. But he was willing to take on that challenge. And I mean, maybe Arch Manning too, and Keith could answer this a little better than I can, and maybe James can too. I get the feeling that maybe Arch Manning didn't anticipate that this would possibly be his second year sitting, because they thought maybe Quinn Ewers would have gone to the NFL by his second year, wasn't going to stick around. But he's already invested 1 year. So he's got to look at things from where he is now, not at what was before coming out of high school. And the best move he can make right now is to stick in a program, at Texas, where he knows the system, knows the coaches, and is going to be ready to roll at any moment. And he's one injury away from starting.
Right.
And if Quinn Ewers slumps by any reason, the coach could pull a Nick Saban, like sitting down at Jalen Hurts for two, in a championship game. So at some point, Quinn Ewers might not see the field unless he's at the top of his game.
I agree with almost all of that. I mean, again, the situation, Quinn Ewers wasn't exactly the player he is today when Arch Manning decided to go there. He was a little inconsistent and had some injury issues, so he didn't know he'd wait. But as far as when he came out, I had advocated that he go to Mississippi. I thought the best story was he goes to Mississippi, wins a national championship in Mississippi, where his uncle, his grandfather was a big star. His dad was a star wide receiver there. And that didn't work out. But listen, I think the kid he's going to get his money. He's going to start, if he's good enough, he's going to go high in an NFL draft, and he'll get his money there too. Plus, he's probably getting some money now that makes it a lot easier to kind of wait his turn, by the way.
Hypothetically, guys, he's a Manning. Let's say he gets his chance to play and he's so-so. He's average down the line, and he gets drafted. He'll get drafted by someone, maybe not high, maybe fourth, fifth round. He'll have an NFL career, maybe not as an elite starter, or maybe not as a starter altogether, but he'll make his money. He'll get his opportunities later on. He's not blowing his opportunity,
right,
to start in the NFL at some point, even if he sits a couple of more seasons in it. And he should be starting by next year at the latest anyway.
If he backed up his entire career at Texas, he'd get drafted somewhere just because of his name and his heritage. So, yes.
I think
I'm not talking about what. Okay, go ahead, James.
I think he's going to end up starting next year, just like Jack said. there's no clear-cut competition that's there behind him, and maybe coming into the league next season. But I'm pretty sure he's getting good advice from his uncles on what to do. If you look back at Peyton Manning when he came in Tennessee, he wasn't the starter initially as a true freshman. He came in on a quarterback that got hurt, and he ended up playing. I mean, he did relatively well. Of course, he started the rest of his career there, but ultimately, you understand that there's competition there. I would imagine that I like the move, not doing, the trend. If you're not starting 1 year, a lot of these players end up going, into the transfer portal and leaving, go to another school. So he's there. I think he's going to have his opportunity, and I like the fact that he stayed. And he's with a relatively good team that seems to have, they're on a trajectory to be good for the next few years.
Agreed. And I got to jump. Thanks, guys.
All right, Keith. We'll see you. Thanks for stopping in real quick. And TGI Sports host Keith Angle. Take care, buddy. So, I mean, I don't know. I would think that somebody that really wanted to get in the NFL would really want to go somewhere and start. That's my opinion. I don't care if he sits home and makes millions or not. That's not why you go to college, to sit there and make millions. You go there to get education, supposedly, and try to further your career. And today it's like, well, he's making millions of dollars. Who cares? I don't know. That doesn't sound like a football player to me. I mean, you go make your millions of dollars starting somewhere, and that's how I would think about it. But
Mac, he could do it both. And keep in mind, his father isn't, Peyton or Eli, who's already raked in the millions. I mean, I'm sure Coop is doing okay for himself, but this money he's making in college, if he invests it's life altering for him in the meantime, and he knows he'll get his opportunity. You're thinking, be a competitor, go for minimum wage in the NFL, bypass $1 million. It's easy for you to say.
I love this dude. Okay, so one other thing I didn't cover with Keith in here was, of course, Deion Sanders comes out and says, my wins aren't any other coach's wins. That, there's a spotlight on him, and his son jumps in and he says, yeah, there's been a lot of pressure on my father since he's been here. Of course, his youngest son, a quarterback that might be taken highly in the draft, we'll see. And I just got to smile at this. Who brings the attention on him? He does. Who's the one in front of the cameras all the time? He is. So I love the fact when people do things, and he won 3 games last year. It looked like, that Colorado was going to be a major player in their conference, and ended up not being. And it makes me smile I love when people do things to themselves and then turn around and complain about it. And Deion Sanders does one thing great, draws attention to himself, whether it was playing football, broadcasting, or coaching. Deion Sanders has always done that. So it made me chuckle a little bit that his wins aren't the same as other people's wins.
He only won 3 games last year. I don't know what he wants to do to magnify that. Listen, he's been good for Colorado. He filled the stands. He's been great. That was the best possible hire the university could have made, economically at least for them, and to bring attention onto them. He did well at Jackson State. The jury is still out on Deion to an extent, how good a coach he's going to be. So far, he's been okay. I mean, you can't criticize him. He didn't have the greatest roster last year. Let's see what type of program he builds at Colorado. Maybe more importantly, let's see how long he's going to be there. Is he dug in? Is he planning to be there for the long haul? Is he one of these coaches like a Larry Brown in basketball who's always going to want to be on the move? But Larry Brown was extremely accomplished. Deion Sanders still has his work cut out for him. But listen, I'm not going to be critical of Deion. I mean, so far, so good. And if he wins a game, it's more magnified than other coaches winning a game. We hear about it on the news. Same way if he loses a game, it's more magnified. It's just the way it is.
I agree with Mac on this one in regard to the attention that he brings on himself. This is where the issue comes with your wins or whatever wins you had, 3. I love Deion. I'm a huge fan of Deion Sanders, and I just said, look, I wouldn't even say anything about the wins. I mean, because right now, I think the attention that you're bringing to yourself, you need to make sure that your team is winning. Make sure they're winning, and then don't just go from there. I mean, because right now, like you said, all the attention that's been his whole mantra, his career. He even admitted to being a cornerback wasn't paying in the league. He wanted to be the highest cornerback, so his primetime mantra was what he created to in order to get paid more money. So it clearly, as a coach, it's the same thing. He had success at Jackson State. Hopefully, the success continues. Besides economically, but it continues to translate in wins as well with their team. And I think is yet to be determined. But again, we'll see. But yeah, come on, Deion, man, don't bring up the issue about magnification on you because of your wins are different than other coaches. Every coach has pressure on them. I mean, if you don't win in the league, you don't stay in the league. It's just what it is.
Jack, let me ask you, because I know you brought up something I want to talk a little bit about real quick. You said he's developed something there with the young kids. I know they have like media classes for him and stuff like that, and that's all well and good. I mean, that's great that he's bringing different things into the college programs. But isn't your job as the head coach to it? I mean, the other stuff is great, and not that I don't think Deion might build a good program in Colorado. It could happen. He has the experience of being an NFL player, but when all's said and done, after 3 years, if he doesn't, he's not really going to be remembered for, bringing in media programs and giving different things to kids, different classes. He's going to be remembered whether he was a winning coach or not.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mac. But correct me, James, too, if I'm mistaken. Didn't the Colorado team he took over won one game the year before or something? And
Correct.
They won those 3 games early in the season, and they were somewhat competitive. So there was a little bit of an improvement. But if he does leave after 3 years and they're where they are right now, yeah, he wouldn't have been successful there if he moves on. You look at what someone leaves behind, what type of program to a degree, and where they eventually took the team. And he'll be thought of, Deion, and he's thought of this way even now, more of a personality than a coach or football player. As a football player, really, he was underrated. He's one of the greatest players of all time. To me, he's the greatest shutdown corner in the history of the NFL. And he was a heck of a, kickoff returner, punt returner as well. But he won't be thought of as a coach. He'll be thought of as a personality who played baseball, Deion prime time, the charisma, the whole bit. So his ultimate legacy is yet to be determined. But if he winds up being a heck of a coach, okay, let me ask you guys this. It's twofold. You would agree with me, both of you. Deion has control of his teams. It's not like the players walk over him. He's the boss. You get that impression. But then again, so many of these players left the Colorado program because they didn't want to deal with Deion. And that might reflect very poorly on him because it might be an attitude, my way or the highway, no flexibility at all. So, everything's yet to be determined. Deion's great so far as a head coach, is an incomplete. But if I had to evaluate him, I'd say he's done okay on balance. He's done, maybe well even, because he was good at Jackson State. And like I said, he brought a buzz to Colorado. Let me ask you guys this. If Colorado hired anyone else but Deion this season, do you think anyone would even be talking about Colorado? Maybe another coach would have won 3-4 games. Maybe would have won one more game than Deion. Who would have cared? They would have been irrelevant, the Colorado program. But now nationally, we're all looking at the score. When we look at the college game day scores come in, we always want to now know, what did Colorado do? What did Deion do? And we wouldn't have been talking that way with another coach.
I agree.
The only way I could say maybe that someone like a Nick Saban, a great coach, went to Colorado, maybe. But I get your point, Jack. It does bring a lot of attention to the school, and with a lot of attention when people watching it, is a great way to go and talk to these kids and say, look, you're going to be on TV a lot. You're going to have this. You're going to have that. It's a great tool to to get kids to go to that school. But still, I mean, is it Deion or is it Colorado? And that's what I'm waiting to see. I'm waiting to see if this is all about Deion or is this about the Colorado Buffaloes. I think that's what we're going to find out in the next couple of years. And if Deion does make the team a 500 team this year and maybe pushes up to the top, good. But if he doesn't, then it's going to be there's going to be a lot of people out there saying, listen, enough of the talk. You got to do something, and we'll see. So I'm going back to the NFL right now. I'm going to say something that sounds really crazy. And y'all are going to look at me and probably say, what are you talking about? Is Micah Parsons overrated? He's a good to great regular season edge rusher. He sort of let maybe some of the people that think he's great down last year in the playoffs when he said he was tired. And in the 4 playoff games he's been in, he's had only 1 sack, 8 tackles. I think it's something like 10 assisted tackles. There's no doubt that this guy is the best defensive player to me on the Cowboys and that he can do things with the Cowboys. He's averaging 10 sacks a year. But he came in, and if you guys remember, this is the next Lawrence Taylor. Probably unfair, right? You're talking about maybe the greatest defensive player in the history of football.
No, they weren't saying that. He went about 10th in the draft, so they weren't calling him a Hall of Famer automatically.
That's
right?
what I don't know. I don't know about you, Jack, but I know for sure.
I said he was the best player coming out of the draft when he came out that year, so I was high on him.
Well, I'm not talking about.
People weren't saying he was.
I'm not talking about. Yes, they were. I don't know if James heard it or not.
He won the last.
I heard.
Yes, we did.
I heard the Lawrence Taylor comparisons too. Yeah,
there was.
Yeah.
Everyone compares style of play, one player to another style of play when they say it.
I'm just
It
saying.
could be another Lawrence Taylor type in the way he plays.
Well, that's not what they said. They were comparing. They said he could be the next Lawrence Taylor. All I'm saying is, with all that expectation, being a Cowboy, being under the spotlight all the time, and not only saying in the playoffs he was tired, which a lot of people had fun with, he has off-field issues, right? He's always heckling back and forth with other teams, with ex-teammates, with his own teammates. There's always a problem there. He was graded the 3rd best this year coming up. He's graded as the 3rd best pass rusher in the league. I don't know about that. I think he's up in the top 5, top 6, maybe. I don't know if it was TJ Watt. It was the Cleveland defensive end. I'm having a quick
Myles Garrett.
But he was rated above Bosa brothers. He was rated ahead of the Josh Allens. Last year, believe it or not, Thibodeau of the Giants had more sacks than he did. All I'm saying is he maybe a little overrated, guys?
No, I don't think he's overrated. You know what his problem is? He talks like you just said. He goes on social media, and if he was quiet and he lacked that charisma outside of the field, you'd look at him a little differently. You don't like a guy going on social media talking a lot and then not backing it up. You mentioned Myles Garrett. I mean, we could all agree he's a great, great player, but he went something like 5 games without a sack at the end of the year. He didn't say he was tired, but chances are Myles Garrett was tired, over the course of the season. But he didn't say it, so we kind of give him a pass. And you would hope Micah Parsons would supply maybe a little more leadership, that he would be the guy, not just the best play on the defensive unit, but they would rally kind of around him, kind of like with Chris Jones in Kansas City. You get the feeling the Kansas City defensive unit, which is very good, they rally around their leader, Chris Jones. You don't get that feeling with the Cowboys. They're like all rallying around Micah Parsons. He strikes you, and I don't know whether this is accurate or not. He just strikes people as a bit of an eye guy, an individual guy. That's his image. Sometimes images aren't fast. Sometimes images aren't reality, but that is the image. And by him continuing to go on social media, we think, okay, back it up, Big Mouth. We want to see your numbers. We want to see you be the best, defensive end in the league. We want to see you completely dominate. And most importantly, we want to see you take the Cowboys to the Super Bowl. We want the Cowboys in the Super Bowl, and we want to see you as a big-time player helping them get there. And we haven't gotten that. We got a flat performance in the playoffs, and people are looking who to blame. They blame Dak Prescott a little bit. They blame Mike McCarthy a lot. They're kind of blaming a little Micah Parsons. When you don't get to where you want to be as a team, the fan base is going to look towards the leaders. And the leaders better be darn good. They better be darn outstanding. Even any sport. Aaron Judge has been phenomenal for the Yankees. But if the Yankees get to the playoffs, which they probably will, and Aaron Judge gets 1 RBI in 5 games and hits 111, and the Yankees get eliminated, the Yankee fan base is going to get on them, and you, Mac, are going to say, oh, was Aaron Judge really worth the contract? If he doesn't deliver in the postseason, I don't think so. Maybe he's a bit overrated. That's just the way it goes.
Well, and James and Jack said that what was key to me is that he is an eye guy. And, when you look at TJ Watt, when you look at Myles Garrett, when you look at these other great defensive edge rushers, whether it's an end or a linebacker, edge rusher has become a new position for some reason or another. But, LT never played down in 3-point stance. He never did. The Giants ran a 3-4. And the Giants defense, quite honestly, that linebacking crew was probably the greatest linebacking crew of all time, with Carson and Banks and with Reasons there and Van Pelt for a while. Michael Parsons doesn't have that. He doesn't have that team like that behind him, and could go good or bad, right? Because you can make the team better and the team makes you better. But to me, if you're going to consider yourself, and of course he was upset that he was 30, he had to tweet out right away, I've been double teamed. Well, every great pass rusher has been double teamed. That's the way it is. I mean, you got to learn to deal with that. But right away, and this is what I think is the problem, there's really no leader on the Dallas defense. Micah Parsons isn't a leader. Yeah. And for him to come right out again and point out, well, I'm double teamed 227 times. That's why I'm ranked number 3. Instead of saying, hey, listen, man, this is an honor to be mentioned amongst, these other great defensive, pass rushers, I think really hurts him in a lot of eyes around football.
Yeah, but is he lying? I mean, if he's double teamed all the time because
everyone is, Jack. Every great defensive, every great pass rusher is doubled and triple teamed. That's just the way it is.
But this is my thing. If you're double teamed, if you're triple teamed, if you consider yourself one of the best, actions speak louder than words. What you need, to me, he's not being a leader, but also tells me that there's no leader to pull him aside and say, hey, man, if you look, you're one of the best, but you need to be in your game and stop focusing on what's going on outside, or stop tweeting, or stop trying to build your brand before you have an established career first, and to become arguably one of the greatest edge rushers or defensive end, whatever he's considered to be, a hybrid player. Yeah, because I think he can. I think he really could put himself up in that stratosphere, but he's not focused. I think focus is key here, and lack thereof, and not having a strong leader. A strong leader doesn't have to be as great as he is, but somebody that's rock solid, or some veteran that says, look, man, this is what you need to do. This is where I've been. This is what goes on in the league. But you're not living up to your potential. That's what I would say. If I'm a leader in the team, I would tell him, you're not living up to your potential, and your focus is not where it is supposed to be directed. I think that's just as simple as that for him as a player, because you see the talent. He's super talented as a player.
Physically, very physically. He looks the part. He plays. He's fast. He's big. He's strong. He's got some good moves. But again, a lot of football is about the head and technique. We're going to take a quick break right now. We're going to be back right after this quick message, folks.
This is a Huddle Sports Network broadcast. You can find us on Roku TV Amazon Fire TV, Facebook, and of course YouTube. Get all your NFL news here first.
Hello, this is Paul Semendinger, award-winning author and the host of the Dr. Sem Yankee Show and the Start Spreading the News podcast. And you are watching The Big Football Show, the very best football show in the entire world. And it's here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Enjoy.
Dr. Paul, one of the better sports, well, one of the newer, better sports writers, writes about a lot of baseball and stuff. Thanks for that. You are watching the Mac, Jack, Sonia, and James Big Football Show on Northeast Streaming Sports YouTube. We're on with our partners, the Huddle channel on their Fire Stick, and of course Twitter, and we'll be on Roku later at 4 p.m. So we're around for a lot of the day today. Stay with us. A name change, and I got confused a lot here too. I mean, when they talk about Josh Allen, my mind goes directly to the Buffalo Bills quarterback. There's a great, a very good to great linebacker, had a heck of a season, has had some heck of a seasons with the Jags, and he changed his name to Josh Hines Allen. To me, I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? I mean, it's. And when you're talking about you want them to know you're talking about you, not Josh Allen. Do people start calling him Josh Hines Allen, or did they keep calling him Josh Allen? I don't know.
No, I had a simple solution, guys. He just should have called himself Joshua Allen. Okay, Joshua Allen. I mean, I'm sure growing up he was called Joshua by a lot of people. Instead of Josh is short for Joshua. So just say Joshua Allen and Josh Allen, and you distinguish. But I agree with you, Mac. It created a lot of confusion. You'd hear the name Josh Allen on the Jaguars. You'd always think of the quarterback. And it's a shame because position for position, if you talk pound for pound, the Josh Allen, the defensive force might be as good in his position or better even than the quarterback is in his. You could argue it. It's debatable, in other words.
Yes. And, James, you do got to get your name out there, man. That's tough, especially when you're talking about a starting quarterback that's an MVP runner-up. And here you are, very good at your position and on a team. And, they say Josh Allen got a sack yesterday. And I'm thinking, well, Josh Allen's playing defense now. What the heck's going on, right? So anyway, it's a good move by him, I think. Anyway, as a player. So I love football. I love schemes and schematics and strategy, coaching. I love coaching, even maybe more than playing. I love reading books about coaching. It's like a violent chess game. Well, Dick LeBeau, great defensive coordinator, came out with a book about the 2008 Steelers, their historic defense. And it's called the 2008 Super Bowl Steelers Zone Blitz Defense. And not to get into the weeds, but what Dick LeBeau did was he practiced turning the ball over and running for touchdowns, blocking downfield and all. This was part of his defense. And if you remember, during the Super Bowl against the Cardinals, pivotal play at the end of the second half. Kurt Warner throws an interception to the great linebacker. Let me see if I can get to him real quick here.
Harrison. James Harrison.
James Harrison, correct. Hall of Famer. James Harrison, of course, wasn't drafted either. Just throw that in, just a little something there for you. But anyway, James Harrison picks it off, goes 99 yards. Pittsburgh goes up 17-7 at the halftime. Ironically enough, when he intercepted the ball, Dick LeBeau was yelling at him to get down. Right? He didn't want him running the ball 99 yards. There was like 20 seconds left or something like that. They wanted the ball back and a chance of scoring at the halftime. So zone blitz defense, for people who would like to know what it is, it's a very a confusing defense that you're running an offense where you bring people that aren't on the front line and then blitzing. Normally a couple linebackers, maybe a linebacker and safety, and you come at different angles. And it confuses the offensive line on what their blocking assignments. It confuses the quarterback a little bit where the pass rush is coming from. A lot of teams will drop a defensive lineman back into coverage, and they play zone blitz, zone defense behind it so they don't get burned on the big play. So that's basically what a zone defense is, a zone blitz defense is. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense has almost always been great since I grew up, from the Steel Curtain to these great teams after with Dick LeBeau. I think tradition means something. I think identity means something to a team. I'm going to get to this in a minute with my team. I think that if you don't have an identity, there is no way to form a team. You just plug in players. This is a good quarterback, throw him in there. He's a good running back, throw him in there. He's a good safety, throw him in there. Teams need identities. When the Jets won the Super Bowl, they had Joe Namath. They had an identity. They threw the ball around the field. This is what happened when you played the Jets. Not that they didn't have a good running game, but this was the Jets' identity. Same thing with United. Same thing with Giants back in the day. They ran the ball a lot. And same thing with the Philadelphia Eagles, right? They have an identity. Their front lines are what make the Eagles better than a lot of teams out there. San Francisco runs the ball. I want to get you guys' opinion on that, just on that alone. Do you think the better teams have identities than the teams that just draft good players and kind of throw it together and try to do something? And I'm going to add the Philly sports guy in with that right now. How you doing this morning, Pags?
Good morning. How are you?
Good. So,
congratulations, Pags, on the 8th Philly All-Stars, by the way. But don't comment on that because Mac's in football. But I just wanted to congratulate you.
Congrats.
I did what?
8 Philadelphia Phillies are elected to the All-Star team, but don't comment on it. He's Mac's on football now, so let him finish.
Well, we're talking football, but I also went to my first ever boxing match yesterday, so I hope we have a little time to talk about that too.
So Pags, what I'm talking about is identity, right? I mean, is the Dallas Cowboys problem identity instead of just? I mean, they have a good team. They have a very good team. And then you look at the San Francisco 49ers and Philadelphia Eagles, and if they're playing what kind of ball they should be playing on the front line, pounding you, that's their identity, right?
I don't know that that's their identity, but I feel like that. All right, so to answer your question, do I feel that the Cowboys' problem is their identity? No. I do feel, though, that there are times where you get in your own head. And I feel like that may have happened last year with the game against the Packers, that they realize that, or they feel like they can't win, or things start to happen badly in the game, and they start to get like quicksand, where they start to just sink, and they don't know how to get out of it.
Well, you weren't on when I said this, and if I talk to you about and Jack and James can comment on this too. When you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers, what do you think of?
I think of the Steel Curtain.
Right? I mean, Jack, if you think of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you think of a tough, aggressive team, right? I mean, you don't think of too much. I mean, they had Lynn Swann, they had all those things. But even today, you're going to go play the Pittsburgh Steelers, you're going to have to button up your chin strap if you want a chance at winning that. Wouldn't you think that?
Well, that's a team's identity going back for decades, a style of play, going back from the time of the Steel Curtain to today and all the players. That defense in 2008, Mac, that wasn't a historic defense. I mean, I don't want to hear about that. They had to rally and get, a touchdown at the end of the game. Yeah, the historic defense gave up the touchdown to Larry Fitzgerald, which easily could have lost the game. So I don't want to hear about a historic defense. Something like the Baltimore Raven defense with Ray Lewis, that was more historic, much more historic than that particular Steeler team. The Steel Curtain, you could say that was a historic defense. We look back on that. But, the Steelers do have that identity. Hard-nosed, the style of play that, they use. But that's a large part because they've only had something like 3 coaches in the last 50 years, okay? Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, now Mike Tomlin. They don't change coaches, so it's easy to have an identity when you have the same coach all along. When you have different coaches, you might lose that identity.
That's a great point. But again, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, if you're going to build a team, you got to build a team with something in mind, right? You can't just, like I said, you could go out and you could get the best wide receiver, and not that doesn't make you a throwing team. I mean, you've got to have something that sets you apart. And I think if you look at the history of certain teams, if they don't have the identity they had then, they end up losing their way. And I'll give you an example. New York Giants. The New York Giants had an identity at one time. They were a hard-running team. They threw when they had to throw, and they played good defense. And that wasn't just back with the Blue Record Crew. That was later on when they played the Patriots too. They had the big running backs, and they would come at you. I think Pags doesn't think that, but I think Philadelphia has identity because he really didn't comment on it. I think Philadelphia beat you up on the line of scrimmage, and that's their identity. And the rest come, right? You're going to throw the ball great. You're going to whatever. They beat you up. And I think Philadelphia right now, even with Sirianni not being there a long time, already has that identity. I think they've always had that identity. Back to the 80s and 90s, the Philadelphia Eagles are coming to beat you up. And whether it's like Kansas City that has maybe a different identity or some other teams, they have one. And I think that's a problem a lot of teams come into, including the Saints. I don't think the Saints have an identity, James.
I agree. What I will say is, in regards to the history of the game, we're talking about identities. Most times identity is coupled with innovation or a pioneer of sorts. We're talking about like maybe Chicago Bears when they had the coach that used to coach. Well, he ended up coaching the Philadelphia Eagles after he left Chicago. He had the 46 defense. Yes. Buddy Ryan, absolutely. So you look at a guy like that. I mean, that defense, that like Jack said, a defense like that really just dominated. That's what took them all the way to the Super Bowl. Of course, they had a good running back, a great, probably arguably the greatest running back in the history of the game to help them as well. And you could also say innovation with San Francisco. Bill Walsh with his West Coast offense. So many teams and different coaches have spawned from that and taken their version of a West Coast offense that they still play it to this day. So innovation is one of the key components to having an identity. And so I would say, yeah, like you said, the Saints don't really have an identity right now. I totally agree with that. We'll see how they do. But that innovation is one of the things I think that having a successful team. Tampa Bay, the Tampa 2, that's also another defense you can say that ended up winning in 2002 because of the style of defense that they had.
Identities could run outside of the players. It could be a stadium that has a reputation as the loudest place to play. So the offense is concerned about being able, the quarterback to call the signals, the other players to hear. They could be concerned about all the distractions that they're going to have. That could be an identity, of a stadium, a fan base, making it difficult on an opposing team. And even the Eagle fans, a visiting team comes in, the Eagle fans have an identity of making it difficult for the opposing team. And it's on the opposing team's mind. They're coming into Philadelphia. They're not just competing against the Eagles, but in a sense, they're competing against the whole stadium, that they got to conquer the outside distractions.
I would say that's right. Great points all around. And as you see, the Philadelphia Eagles maintained that defensive line, that, and not compared to Reggie White and some of the great, maybe the Jerome Browns, but man, their front four has been something else even to today.
No Hassan Reddick this year, so let's see what the Eagles transition from Bryce Huff. I think.
Hold on, you guys don't have Hassan Reddick either, right? Not yet.
Well.
Okay, just want to make sure. I just want to make sure that you're on that same boat, because Hassan Reddick didn't get as many sacks last year, and is holding out because obviously he thinks he's better than he is. That was his MO. That was his MO in Philly. And he liked to chirp. It started to become a cancer. He's already become a cancer in the Jets organization.
The season hasn't begun. Let's relax. The preseason game, he'll be there. Hassan Reddick getting those sacks and being a big time player for the Jets. I mean, he'll do.
But your guy who led the team in sacks last year, he's an Eagle now, right?
Yeah, but he was.
Just wanted to make sure.
He was a little bit of a system player, a system type player.
Well, guess what? Guess what? Our system's better. So just
that's tough. The Jets defense is no joke. That's a tough comparison. I mean, that would be a heck of a physical game. The Jets defense and the Philadelphia offensive line and the defense. That would be a great game in the trenches anyway. So of course my Giants are on Hard Knocks, and we're watching them letting Saquon Barkley go, and what their thought process was to maybe use that extra salary cap, which the NFL gave an extra salary cap to sign more players than just pay Saquon Barkley. I mean, the biggest thing I took away from that letting Saquon go was that it's Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones, they weren't going to pay a $45 million quarterback to hand off to a $20 million running back. That was their reason for letting him go. Of course, I think Jalen Hurts is making close to that. He will be handing off to a pretty expensive
$12 million. To a $12
Yes.
million.
I'm going to tell you this, guys. The Eagles play in the Meadowlands this year. Obviously, they play a game
On my birthday, by the way.
every year, right? If the Eagles dominate that game and Saquon Barkley is sensational, can you imagine the crowd reaction, the pressure that's going to be on the GM, Joe Shine, and the whole organization, that if Barkley is a dynamic running back this year, and if he stays healthy, he is. Saquon Barkley is going to be one of the best running backs in the NFL if he stays healthy this year. But could you imagine how ugly it could get for the Giants if they're blown out and Saquon has like 3 touchdowns, 150 yards, catching the ball out of the backfield? Man, that's going to be entertaining to watch.
It definitely will.
Yeah.
Definitely will.
The Giants made a mistake. I think they made a tremendous mistake. They should have traded him before they let him go. I think you don't let him go to your in-division rival and be motivated to come back on you. And to a team that has weapons on the outside where he doesn't have to have Aiden and box to beat him up. You just don't do that. And he's a star running back. He doesn't have to have all the pressure on him to be like what he had with the Giants, because he was the main focus of the offense. I agree with Jack. He's really going to have a great year, and it's just unfortunate that they let him go to that. I mean, he's going to tear them up, I think. Be honest with you.
Are you happy with this Hard Knocks? Because I tell you, every video that I watch of the Giants from Hard Knocks shows a little bit of ineptness.
Yes.
And that's beyond anything else. Like, I don't know if that's what they were trying to show, like that they were accentuating some of the decisions that they made that show how inept they are, but it's bad. Like if I was a fan of this franchise, I'd really be concerned about how ownership is putting people in place moving forward.
I think there was way too many people involved in a process, and they looked, I don't want to say weak pegs, they looked undecided about a lot of things.
Inept.
You know?
Inept.
Yeah.
That's why I think that's the perfect word there.
They were telling GM Joe Shine what he wanted to hear, basically. He's giving him a whole list of running backs who he feels could basically replace Saquon Barkley at a much cheaper price. And I'm thinking you could put all these guys together and they don't equal up to Saquon Barkley. You know, he's taking Saquon Barkley, if he's healthy, he can be a superstar next year. Not just a very good player, superstar. And he might be the most dynamic play on the Eagle offense next year. Maybe, maybe not. I'm not saying he will be, but potentially he could be. And they're just, figuring out he's just a running back. Just that attitude. I don't need a $40 million quarterback handing it off to, Saquon Barkley. That's demeaning and that's insulting. I don't think the Giants were counting on him getting the other offer. They thought maybe he's not going to get an offer and we'll be able to re-sign him at our price.
That nobody was going to pay him $12 million a year. That's what they said it out loud. Nobody's going to do it. And they were wrong.
And I watched I watched the interview process a little bit. I'm not a fan of off season especially training camp. I'm not interested in that hardly at all. But I watched Brian DeBall with the quarterbacks, with the top three quarterbacks, quizzing them, show me your right play, calling plays, having them repeat it. What do you do if this happens? And what do you do if that happens? Kind of interesting. But I mean, you're talking to college quarterbacks you're pretty much running a college offense now in the NFL. It's a spread offense for the most part. The terminology might be a little bit different, but it's basically the same kind of reads if you're a good quarterback. I think they kind of passed by Jayden Daniels if they had a chance to get him. If they moved up, they kind of were like he was hurt. I don't know. I mean, told the Patriots guy, call me before you trade the third pick in the first round. Let us have a chance. Maybe they were thinking of getting Drake May, which I think would have been a terrible pick. But I don't know, Pags. It was really confusing to me as some of the things as they're watching the 40-yard dash and who cares. The interviews were kind of interesting. I mean, DeBall has coached some of the great quarterbacks. I mean, he did coach Jalen Hurts. He did coach Tua. He did coach Brett Favre. He did coach Josh Allen. I mean, he's been around a lot of quarterbacks and maybe has some good knowledge. I don't know. It's a different type of series for sure. And I'm a little frustrated with some of the things I saw for sure. I really
it's
was.
scary. It's scary because I don't think I think it's very possible the Giants could be the worst team in the league this year. That they're going to have a really big problem. Somebody had mentioned that the over/under on them scoring touchdowns this year for the entire season could be under 15.
I wouldn't. I'm a realist, Pags. If the Giants go 6 or 7 wins, I'll be happy this year. Be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's pie in the sky. I think that's very pie in the sky.
No, the fan base won't be happy with another 6-11, even a 7-10. I mean, then Daniel Jones has to be gone. And you know what we're going to be hearing? The big buzz we're going to be hearing. You mentioned earlier, Mac, Arch Manning. Oh, Arch Manning coming to the Giants. That would energize the fan base. Another Manning. But he's going to play college.
I can't wait for that to happen.
If Manning plays this year, there's always a chance, he'll enter the NFL draft next year. And if the Giants are picking very high in the order, who knows? Fan bases love stuff like that, just like the Laker fans and all of us talk about Bronny James with the Lakers. Manning would replace Bronny James, like in the news. We'd follow every little thing Manning did. We're doing it now to an extent.
I think that if the Giants don't do better this year, that Shine and DeBall are in a lot of trouble. And I think they kind of were exposed a little bit. I think this worked against them a little bit, doing this type of series instead of going to a training camp and just spotlighting players. I think what they did was they allowed these guys behind the scenes and, like the Wizard of Oz, what's behind the curtain. And they kind of got a little peek at that. And I don't think a lot of people are very happy at what they saw. And I think they exposed themselves. I think it was a kind of a crazy idea. Listen, I think the Giants defense will be fine next year. I think their running game will be okay. Jones, I don't know if Neighbors is going to make a big splash or not. We'll find out. But I have no perceived notions of them, being a very good team this year or maybe an average team this year. I think that's where they're about. And if they surprise me, great, but I doubt that. I doubt that very much. So, I'm ready for another long year. I really am. So that's it.
Well, who are they going to beat out? That's the question. Look at their division. You got the Eagles. They probably don't beat them out. The Cowboys, they probably don't beat them out. And the Commanders look to be in a little bit of an upswing. So they're going to be hard to beat out. So you might,
it's going to be like, I think 3 or 4 wins for the Giants. Just saying. I'm just saying.
I don't know. The schedule's not hard.
It may not be hard, but I don't think you guys have. I don't think that you guys have anybody on offense at all to put the ball in the zone.
Malik Neighbors could be outstanding.
I think, we got to see what he does. But yeah, I agree with Malik Neighbors.
Who's throwing the ball? That's the problem. You have. It's inept across the board. You guys got another receiver, but you still didn't upgrade your line at all. You still got Daniel Jones as the quarterback there. And if he gets hurt, you have then DiNucci. You know what I mean? So it's like
we have Drew Lock.
You do. You do have Drew Lock. So there's that.
He's a competent back. Okay, he's not.
What I think too in football, a lot has to do with chemistry, right? And if they, not to put down the Eagles, Bags, I don't want to get you upset, but we beat you at the end of the year with a second string quarterback, and the chemistry on your team kind of fell off with all your talent. So, there are other parts besides just, who your quarterback is or your line is not as good as my line. There's a lot more to football than just players and that. So I don't know. To be honest with you, like I said, Pags, I don't think they'll win only 3 games, but I know they're not going to be in the playoff hunt. That's for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, you made a point about the Eagles. I got the feeling, Pags, at the end of the season, and this sounds bad to say, the Eagles just gave up when they fell apart. They just kind of gave up as a unit. So now they have a long winter. Every team starts over. If they get off to a little bit of a slow start, even not, why would things be different? Why would the attitude be better coming into training camp? I know you're a little recharged with certain moves. They lost leadership in Jason Kelsey retiring, but got a big spark, Saquon Barkley. Other moves were made, other good moves were made. I think it's a lot to do with attitude with a team like the Eagles. What's their attitude going to be? A.J. Brown is saying the right things. It's unpredictable right now. And maybe they pick up from where they left off, which would make it a long season, which would make it a 7-10, 8-9 season. Or maybe they go back to being the Super Bowl type team they were before, and they'll be a 13-4 type team. The Eagles are intriguing because we just don't know what the chemistry that team is going to be. A team like the Chiefs are going to have excellent chemistry. You know that. But the Eagles, it's unpredictable. It could go either way.
Well, I want you to keep thinking that as we start the season. Because I'll be honest with you, I don't think that we start the season all that great. I think that we start the season 2-2, which would not be a really great start in the grand scheme of things. But I think after all is said and done, that you're going to see us in the NFC Championship game, and then we'll have to see what happens then. I have us going to the NFC Championship. I don't think that the NFC is strong enough. I think that this Ayuk situation is just starting to poke holes into what we think is a big, strong, firm entity. I think that you're starting to see little cracks in the armor there, and I think that Detroit is really the only other team that's going to that has enough talent to be able to get to that area. I don't think that there's the strength amongst all of the teams this year that even last year. Like last year, you had Green Bay that came on strong at the end. Dallas came on strong at the end and then blew it to Green Bay. You know, in Tampa, I won't say Tampa came on strong. I feel like that the Eagles fell off. You know, that the Eagles lost that game more than Tampa won that game. And there was nothing that the Eagles could do to get around it. So, yeah, there is going to be some concern. There is some concern. Is Barkley going to remain healthy? You know, that's a big deal. You know, if he gets hurt like in a similar manner to Rodgers, you know, it's like, is that deflating enough that it could bring the entire offense down? That they're just like, oh, you know what I mean? And then that's how they play. So yes, there are a lot of questions that need to be answered.
You know, Pags, I would be more concerned about the coaching. You got two new coordinators this year, putting in maybe different or new systems. And you had talent last year, even without Barkley. You had talent. I mean, you had talent.
We had two brand new coordinators last year that had very limited expertise.
Yeah, I agree.
They have been doing this for a while. And I'm not sold on Kellen Moore yet. I've watched all the Cowboys fans complain about Kellen Moore. I watched all that occur. Vic Fangio is obviously been around for a very long time, but he's not a player's coach. Does that mean that he's got a shelf life? How long do the people want to listen to him? Everything seems great while they're winning. When they're not winning, things start to go awry very quickly. So that's going to be some of the important things that's got to get dealt with this season.
So to finish it up, you guys got Saquon Barkley. You're loaded. You're loaded on offense. There's no doubt about that. Defense, I don't know if you're loaded or not, but you're definitely loaded on offense. So if you have a season like last year, or you don't make the playoffs for some reason, is this when they start looking at Nick Sirianni?
Without a doubt. Yeah, they're going to look within there, because on paper, the Eagles are one of the best teams.
Yes,
when you put it out there on the field, just because it's done on paper, if we come out and if we're 4-4 after the first 8 games, they may make a change right away.
That would be interesting. That would be very interesting to see something like that. I know you guys, well, probably you all have heard of Richie Incognito, offensive lineman who was some people considered maybe a little dirty, at least very physical. And he was on the show and he's got his own podcast. And he was saying that back when he played, of course, you hear all the stories, they would rip your head off. Now it's more fun. It's faster. And I agree to a point with that. I think maybe the spread offense has made it a little bit more exciting. But when I look at who gets in the playoffs, and of course back then, even when he played and before he played, you had Dan Fouts, Eric Coryell, you had the run and shoot offense. I mean, there were variations of some exciting offenses. But when you look at who ends up in the Super Bowls, in the championship games, it comes down to the physical teams. Kansas City was very physical last year. That's how they won that Super Bowl. They had a physical running game, a physical defense. The Eagles, when they went to a championship game, physical to a Super Bowl, physical team. The 49ers, a physical defense, a physical running game. I think that we look at games during the regular season and we look at some games and say, wow, this is 40-34. But when you get down to it, it's still the old school football that wins the games. Who wants it more? Who's more physical? Who imposes whose will on the other team? And that's who ends up winning the Super Bowls. Granted, KC had a couple very exciting teams, but their defense made some big plays. Last year, their defense pretty much carried them. And what are your thoughts, guys? Do you think that football has really gone past to where it was before? And will that carry teams on to win Super Bowls in the very near future? Just having a better offense, a more exciting team.
I think that they're still trying to change the game to where passing offenses are going to succeed more so than defenses, because you got to realize, I mean, the changes in defenses or what you can do on defense are still occurring. This upcoming season, I think a lot of people are not talking about it, but the hip tackle or whatever that's outlawed now, has been banned. So that's going to change a lot of things. How else are you supposed to tackle a guy? I mean, I don't get it. So that's going to change. A lot of guys are going to freeze up. They're going to, not to be as physical, I think. I mean, it's going to be physical, but it's going to be different. I think offenses are going to flourish because of that rule this particular season. But a good running game and a great defense is typically, like you said, is what wins championships. But we'll see how that goes.
I still think that it's going to be defense that wins championships, and it's going to be the defenses that can evolve past whatever rule they came up to stop opposing offenses. They're going to be the teams that win championships. It's just that simple.
I would agree with that too. So I want to get Paxton do this. Jack hasn't done this. Me and James did this. I want to get your early. We've talked about the NFC East. I want to get your early predictions. What you think right now? Who finishes where? What their record is, and why? So we'll start with Jack. Jack didn't participate this Wednesday night. I want to get what his thoughts are on the four and why you picked them in that four, the order.
What division are we talking about?
NFC East, Jack.
Well, the Cowboys and Eagles are towards the top. I mean, I'm not quite ready to pick the Commanders to join that group, even though the Commanders on an upswing, and I wouldn't be shocked to see the Commanders go 9-8. Maybe the next year's Houston Texans ready to take the leap up all of a sudden. And like I said a moment ago about the Eagles, I just don't know how they're going to take off. If it's accurate what Pax says, they're going to go 2-2. Are they going to take off from 2-2? Are they going to be mediocre going forward if they're 2-2 after that? It's unpredictable. I mean, in other words, will the real Philadelphia Eagle team stand up? Well, it remains to be seen. The Cowboys have been 12-5 the last 3 years. They make no moves. Are they the same team as they were before? If they are, they should be fine. I mean, they should win 10, 11 games, shouldn't they, guys? Let's forget what happened in the playoffs. They've been consistent the last 3 years. These picks don't count right now. They're very conservative. I could change them when I make my final picks, but I would think the most conservative viewpoint would be right now, I'd say Eagles 1, Cowboys 2, Commanders 3, Giants 4. But, Mac, you mentioned a good point. The Giants have a really good defense. What happens if their defense becomes truly elite and their offense becomes just good enough to be average, let's say? The Giants could conceivably be a factor, but I'm not feeling it for them. I'm sorry, Mac. So I'd say, Eagles, Cowboys, Commanders, Giants, but I'm going to evaluate the Commanders a little more closer to the season because they might be the surprise team of the NFL this year.
Pags, I would, we talked a little bit. I know you're thinking the Eagles will be in first place. Give us a couple of reasons. Give us the order, a couple of reasons why you think the teams will finish where they're at. You already spoke on the Giants, so I know they're in last. But go ahead and give me what your thoughts are.
So I believe I'm a little different than Jack. I feel obviously I do think that the Eagles are going to be in first, and I have them going 12-5. It could be 11-6. I mean, the first 3 games of our season are like away games. Even though one's a home game in Brazil, it's like an away game. So that's the 7 away games, listed away games in the first 12 weeks of the season is going to be a gauntlet to start off, because one of those away games is really a home game in Brazil. So the fact that we've got 8 games away in the first 12 weeks is going to be very, very tough. That being said, I have it Washington number 2, not because they're great, but because I think that they are going to maintain and have taken a small step forward. I feel that the wheels are coming off in Dallas. I said this last year. I thought that Dallas was going to do this, and it didn't occur. And it fell apart at the very, very, very end when the Packers go into Dallas and just manhandled them and destroyed them. I feel that this is the year where it all falls apart, where the wheels do just completely fall off. And you're right. I do. The Giants may have been possibly the worst team that they could have chosen to do this Hard Knocks with, because I feel that the NFL is licking their chops to look at New York on the schedule. And I feel that they're going to be a train wreck this year. And I don't know that even if they fire the coach and fire the GM, that it's going to stop being a train wreck for a couple of years. I feel that this is now that's an ownership thing, not a personnel thing anymore.
James, give us your thoughts. I got a couple different opinions than what they've given, but give me your order and why.
I got the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Giants, and last but not least, the Commanders. I just think the Eagles are super talented on paper, and I think last year was a bit of an anomaly. If I'm going off the talent that they had going back to 2022 and their run all the way to the Super Bowl, I just think that they kept the team intact and they added on. I think it's a matter of the coordinator and making sure your quarterback is head in the game. I listened to Lane Johnson recently on a podcast. He believes in his quarterback, and he thinks he's super talented, and he's the leader of the team. So I think that they'll right the ship, and they'll, like Pack said, at least be NFC Championship bound, just based on the talent in the NFC. The Cowboys, I disagree with him about the Cowboys. I just think they're still talented enough to win 10, 11 games. And I think they have a wild card, at least, minimum. They didn't do anything at running back position. That's kind of weird, but they weren't great at running back last year either, and they still won 12 games. In their defense, I think there's a matter of like we mentioned earlier with Michael Parsons, his head's got to be in the game. If he's not in the game, I think that's if he's focused, I think he could change their defense and the trajectory of where they're going. The Giants, I can't believe they just did this or agree. Well, you have to do Hard Knocks, but that's, like you said, that's just pretty devastating what's going on in some of the decision making. But I think they're talented enough to win 6. Their talent is coming along when they added Malik Neighbors and they added a defensive end from Burns out of Carolina. And they actually have a really good defense. So who's to say how many games they win? They can win 7 or 8 games. I don't know about 4. And I just don't think that the Commanders are just there yet. I mean, everything is on projection. You got a new coach, a new quarterback. We just don't know what they're going to do. So I have them at the bottom.
I would go with the Eagles too, just because they got the probably one of the best 5 skilled players at positions: quarterback, running back, tight end, 2 wide receivers. Their linebacking crew has always been, for some reason, a little down. They lost a couple vets, as Jack said. We'll see. I think the Eagles win the division. I know if it's 12 or 11 wins, I think they win the division. I think Dallas has a lot more problems just running back. I think Dallas can't stop the run. I think they lost Gilmore. They let him go. I think Dallas is going to have problems with distractions with contracts too this year. I think Dallas is. I think they're teetering. I think Bill Belichick's kind of sitting back there looking at the Cowboys, the Giants, and saying, maybe I'll be coaching one of those teams next year. Again, I think the Giants, if they get 7 wins, I'll be happy. That's all I care about. And I agree with you. I think Washington, with a rookie quarterback, the new head coach, suspect defensive backfield. Their defense was suspect last year. Their offensive line got killed. The quarterback got killed last year. He was sacked more than any quarterback in the league. I think they're going to have a problem there, and it's going to take a couple of years for Washington to go ahead and make their move. So pretty close at all that. I mean, I don't know why Dallas didn't do upgraded either. They draft a lot. They don't do a lot of free agents, and that's just something they've done for a long time, especially since Jerry Jones has been there. And I don't understand why either. So NFL Steelers defensive back Cameron Sutton gets suspended on a personal conduct thing for domestic violence, violence and strangulation, and he's suspended for 8 games. I mean, we see this a lot, guys. What interests me is the action taken by the NFL for different players. If, as Jack says, if this was Patrick Mahomes, would he be suspended for 8 games? I don't know the answer to that. And I think that the less valuable you are to your team and to the NFL, the less your punishment, as we saw with Rashad Rice. I don't know if you guys have any comments on that or not. It's just interesting to me. It depends on who the player is. Okay. All right. Me and Jack talked about Tom Landry on the Sports Memory Show. And I want to get your opinions on this because me and Jack and Doc have a Sports Memory Show on Saturday. We go back.
I'm going to have to, Mac, let me cut in because I'm going to have to exit by 9:45 sharp, the show. Like I let you know this in advance.
All right.
So, and Pax was at the Fights Philadelphia last night. We don't have as much time to talk with Pax as I want because I didn't want to interfere with you talking about the football. But since I have to go very soon, last night in Philadelphia, they had the biggest live crowd to see a boxing event in close to 50 years. I wasn't there, but Pax was there. Pax was there. Boots Ennis stopped David Avanesian, who retired on the stool at the end of the 5th round. First of all, Pax, tell us about the atmosphere, the biggest crowd in all those years.
It was a loud crowd, and I like what they did in terms of they tried to get guys as close to Philly as possible. There was the one fight where the one guy was from Maryland, the other guy was from Jersey City. There was another guy from Philadelphia there. The ladies didn't really have any ties, and of course Boots Ennis, going up there, and doing his thing. He was the one who had most of the crowd, obviously. It was a great crowd. It was over 14,000 people. It was my first ever boxing match. So it was a lot of fun to just kind of watch, and just see it all happen. Obviously watching the undercard, there was one fight that I thought would be so much better. They were talking so much smack, at the prelim, and pushing each other, and then it was just a dud of a fight. I thought it was just very boring.
Peter Dobson, that fight.
Yeah, that just didn't really have any panache to it. I thought the Boots, the Ennis Avanesian fight, Avanesian held his own. I feel like, and I was thinking about you a lot, Jack, in this because, oh my God, now I'm trying to score, boxing. I don't pay attention, but obviously you watch how the fight's occurring and you say, okay, this is happening and this is happening. I thought that Avanesian actually, took a round, like, and when the low blow, I didn't know if they deduct a point from that or not. So I felt that was like maybe a 9-9
No,
round.
what happened, Boots Ennis was being pulled down, so he landed a flagrantly low blow. Evanesian went down, and you're given up to 5 minutes to recover, and if you don't continue after 5 minutes, you lose the fight. But you can take the full 5 minutes under the rules, and he took about half of that or whatever yesterday. And the one round you thought he maybe took was maybe this. I think it was the second round.
The second round.
And it was close. I gave it to Boots, but I was thinking during the round, wow, Evanesian might actually be winning this round. But you can make a case for Evanesian having won the round.
Right. So, and that was the only, but I thought that Boots really had control of the fight. It was just really that flurry. The third round was actually very even until the very end, where I thought Boots had a flurry in the last 20
No, I
30
don't
seconds.
think it. I think Boots basically was in control.
And maybe that's just because I don't know boxing well enough. You know what I mean? It was just like I thought that it was more evenly paced until the very end. I'm like, I think he's got to do something at the very end of this round to do it. But once he landed that one hit, it was over. It was over.
Boots is a Philadelphia fighter.
Yes.
He's from Philadelphia. Are the fans in Philadelphia now going to elevate him more? Is he going to be noticed a lot more? Kind of like as a mini franchise type, player.
Possibly. I was surprised at the amount of people. I mean, he had a tremendous amount of support. I want to say that there were thousands there supporting him. Obviously, there were a few friends of mine that I had no idea grew up with him. So I started to talk a little bit about that. They showed some of his life as he was getting prepared for this fight, and they showed him his neighborhood and things like that. So it was just interesting to get to learn a little bit about him, because obviously I had no idea. And even talking to you, I still didn't really have an idea on who he was, but it was great to just be able to support a Philadelphia guy at the Wells Fargo Center, where it's like we're in Philadelphia. So obviously, I didn't think that there was any doubt that he would win this fight. And I've gotten a lot of messages from people who saw me there that were like, he could be one of the best fighters that nobody knows about right now.
He's trending towards a fight with Terrence Crawford. Crawford knocked out Evanesian in 6 rounds before. Different type of fight. Evanesian looked okay against Crawford, maybe even won 1 or 2 rounds, but Crawford always gives away early rounds. He's that type of tactician. He backs off. Crawford's not concerned in the slightest if he loses a round or 2, because he knows he's measuring his opponent, and then once he has it figured out, he finishes him. So the comparisons between the two, you could say in a way, were the same pretty much. So Boots didn't make that type of statement, but they're trending towards the super fight, Boots against Crawford someday. And if Boots wins that, Philadelphia could conceivably have the biggest name in boxing, being a Philadelphia fighter. But you don't know how the city will take to it, because Smoking Joe Frazier was from Philadelphia, but he wasn't considered as much of a Philadelphia fighter as some of, the lesser names.
Well, so obviously I don't know as much about boxing as you do, but the word or the conversation going around is that this is going to happen again a few more times, that they could have boxing 2 or 3 times a year now in Philadelphia, because right now Philadelphia's got a really good hub of boxers that are working their way up the ranks. I mean, we've spoken about Sonny Conto a number of times. We got Boots. There's another guy who's got a title, I feel, who's considered one of the best fighters pound for pound, in all of boxing. So I feel that this is the first of a few that could possibly occur.
Well, this could be a home base for Boots until he gets the ultimate fight. Keep fighting in Philadelphia, fight guys like Evanesian in Philadelphia, because he's not going to draw as many people anywhere else. And the Philadelphia fans will be great to support him. It's a great evening of entertainment, and he'll be their guy. And that's good if a fighter has a home base. That's great, because even most of the great fighters, they don't seem to have a home base exactly. Right. And let Philly, Las Vegas isn't going to be Boots' home base. And why should it be New York? That, even though I wouldn't be surprised to see him fight at the Garden, the Barclays Center, because the fans in Philadelphia could come down for that. But Philadelphia is a great, great home base for him to have.
I agree, and I look forward to going to another one very soon. I thought it was a lot of fun, and from a novice point of view, it was exciting. It was fun to watch. Even the ladies actually I thought had the second best fight of the night.
Yeah,
because everybody in our group, and there was a lot of influencers in our group, so we weren't boxing people, but we thought that Vargas was going to be she was just going to destroy the Australian, and the Australian was just a tactician. She just was a much better boxer.
I have to exit. I'm sorry, Pax. I got to exit a little early today. See you guys on the next show. Take care.
We'll see you
Take care,
tomorrow,
Jack.
Jack. Okay,
Bye.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
yeah, but it was a tremendous amount of fun, and I did, like I said, I doing my reporting a little bit, like trying to show people what was going on. Had it live on Instagram for a little while. I was showing the fights and stuff like that. I actually recorded the entire female fight and the entire Boots fight.
Yeah,
So
I mean, listen, I'm a big fan of Boots Pags, and I think he is very close to Crawford. If he couldn't beat him, it'd be a heck of a fight. And he's been calling Crawford out for quite a while now. I think Boots is 31-0 right now, and Crawford's like 36-0. So Boots just doesn't have that recognition. The big fight with Crawford, when he fought out there in Vegas, brought him. A lot of people didn't know Terrence Crawford either, but that one fight made him popular. And I get in arguments with Frank before the show, and I'm like, listen, why wouldn't Crawford want to fight the best welterweight available? And even if it's not a big draw the first time, if it's a great fight, the second time it's going to be a big draw. I think Crawford, I bug him. I say Crawford's ducking him. I don't think he's ducking him. I think he's concerned because he wants to move up in weight, that if Boots does beat him, then maybe he has to, kind of start all over again. So I think, listen, I think Boots is going to be great. I think it's great he's out of Philadelphia. Philadelphia's has had a great boxing scene for years historically, and I think Boots is really going to be something special. 31-0 right now. I mean, this guy's doing something, and I wish
with
they
like
boxed
26
more.
knockouts. That's the big deal with 26 knockouts. So that's obviously they were showing some of the knockouts. When he hits you with that one punch, it gets you. It gets you, and it's like that's what happened. That's what happened last night. And I guess I want to say that the fight was called by the doctor, because I didn't think that Avanesian was in such a bad shape. I think the doctor said no, that he had suffered some type of concussion during that fight. So.
Yeah, definitely exciting stuff. Something new, somebody new. I mean, I know he holds a belt, but he's just not known. And when you were on the programs before, you said, "I never heard of Boots Ennis," but now you have, and he's a very exciting fighter. So, I just wanted to talk before we got to the boxing thing about the way coaches are today. We talk about Sirianni. If he doesn't do well this year, maybe they fire him or something. Tom Landry, when he took over as a team that was an expansion team to Dallas, at the time was called the Steers and the Rangers, and finally the Cowboys, ended up going 0-4 first seasons. He had terrible seasons where he had 4 wins and he was getting worse. The Dallas Cowboys signed him to a 10-year extension. And can you imagine that today? Can you imagine Sirianni getting worse in the next 2 years, falling down, and he'll say, well, guess what? We're going to sign you to a 10-year extension. Pretty interesting. It's changed, right? So pretty interesting stuff. Anything else you guys got before we go? Because not a lot of NFL. We got the boxing, which I'm glad we got in before the end. I was going to do that anyway. Anything else you guys got before we take off here a little early?
The last time I checked, the Phillies were still the best team in baseball.
Yes, they are. Definitely are.
They
And
are,
it's,
for sure.
it's the All-Star break.
You know,
James,
but
Go ahead.
not only the All-Star break though, but it's I mean, they've got 61 wins. You know, I guess they'll get 62 today. You know, at least it's suspected because we are playing the A's. It's the Yankees going back and forth. Obviously, that may have they may have needed that bench clearing brawl last night.
You
Or
might be right.
to get themselves energized some. It's just you could tell that they were very stagnant. Watching watching on my channel a Yankees show, which really pisses me off, by the way, but I let it go. But I get to find out a lot more about the Yankees. I'm glad I don't have to talk about it as much with you guys as I used to. But it's like they. I don't know. I think that. I told you, I said at the very beginning, I thought that the Phillies had a mission that they make the last out of this season. And I still 100% believe that even the injuries aren't slowing us down.
Listen,
Your pitching is great.
yes, that is a great point. And the Phillies are on fire right now. They've been on fire. I know the Phillies normally do it the opposite way. They come back after the All-Star break. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think you're loaded, Pags. You got one of the better teams in the NL. I'm not worried about the Yankees. Their pitching has to straighten out. Judge is amazing, that's for sure. I mean, the guy is you make a mistake on him, it's gone. He's an amazing hitter. And Soto doesn't hurt either. So maybe we see maybe the Phillies and Yankees, maybe we get together at the end of the year. We'll see what happens. But there are a lot of good teams out there. The Dodgers, you can't take the Dodgers out of it. You can't take Houston out of it. The Astros. I mean, there's so many teams. Once you get to the playoffs, I mean.
But what do you think about the Wets? I mean, they are really. I mean, they got hot for a minute, then they got cold again. It's, if you're the owner of that team, after you invested all that money, then had to give all that money away. And now you're having a season similar to this. What do you think their thoughts are? Where do you think they go from here?
What do you think, James? Any thoughts on the Mets?
I mean, it's still under 500. I mean, has the trade deadline passed already?
No, not until the 31st.
Yeah, they still need to get rid of they need to just clean house. They're not close, I think. But go ahead and just start over and start from scratch and build again.
What it tells me, Pags, is it shows you just because you got money, you can buy players and sign them to contracts. Doesn't mean you're going to be a winner. All them years they talked about Steinbrenner buying players, you still had to have the right managers. You still had to get the right players. You still had, I think that Cohen is a fan of the Mets, and I think he just said, I'm going to do what I can to build this team and make it, get the best players and sign them at big contracts, and we're going to win. And baseball just doesn't work like that.
Well, I think he got great players, but I don't think he got leaders. He got great players, and that was the problem. When you get great players, you get egos. When you get leaders, you start building a culture. And I feel like that's part of the thing. I feel like that's the difference right now with the Phillies. The Phillies have leaders that are leading, and they're all like, you got a lot of young kids, but you got Harper, you got Schwarber. Schwarber's the mouth, Harper's the attitude, and then you got Turner, who is just quiet confidence. And then you got the kids.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture, Pags. I mean, I don't think Lindor maybe one of the better shortstops. Nemo's okay. I mean, they overpaid him. They overpaid Davis. I mean, he overpaid a lot of players that are good, but they're not a Harper. They're not that kind of quality of player. I think you pay the ones that deserve to be paid, and you kind of, if this guy like center field Nemo, good player. But there's players out there just as good. I think they really wasted a lot of money and a lot of resources on somebody like that. I think that's where he made his mistakes. Alonso, great power, defensively, average. He's a very good player. But will he deserve the big contract that he's going to want at the end of this year and stay with the Mets?
And not paying for pitching. Them not paying for pitching is hurting them.
Big time. big time. Well,
So,
all right, folks. Thank you, Philly. Yes, James, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to say, you asked a while back, what did I think Aaron Judge would be for home runs by the end of the season, and I said 45. Clearly, I am totally wrong, and I can admit that. He's got 34 before the All-Star break, and I think that's a franchise record for them. So I could see him breaking 62 this season for sure, maybe 65 or so.
The key to Aaron Judge is he has his own personal hitting coach. He doesn't use the Yankees hitting coach, and it's working out for him. So, I mean, the extra stuff that you do prepares you to be better. So anyway, yeah, but you can't just win the World Series with a great power hitter. You need a whole team to do that, and the Yankees have got to get that together if they want to go up and face the better teams in the AL and in the NL. So anyway, folks,
look at
thanks for joining us.
Look at Ohtani. Ohtani doing his thing, and they still got swept by the Phillies.
Great point, man. Great point, Pags. I mean, and that team is, and the Dodgers are supposedly loaded. I mean, talk about spending money. What is it, $1 billion or something they paid on that payroll? Something ridiculous. I mean,
1.2 billion.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Wow. Folks, thanks for joining us. Pax, thanks for coming in. Enjoyed hearing about the one of my favorite fighters, Boots Ennis. James, great job. Jack, thanks. And Keith, thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for other shows here on the Roku channel. And Pags, of course, Coast to Coast. And James is always on the Prim and Proper show, whether he's with the guys or without the guys or, whatever they're doing over there. Just check out Prim and Proper Sports. You'll see him. Have a good one, folks. Thanks for spending your Sunday with us.